live on YouTube, for those who want to come through. So peace once again for everybody in the YouTube space, and like I said, this is, give thanks, Brother Raheem, give thanks, peace to you both, that can be heard. All right, cool. So I'm just going to wing it and see how it goes. If there's any sound issues or anything, please don't hesitate to send a red flag or smoke signal in the chat. But yeah, today, we're building on the aspect or the topic really of having a license to live. Very strong. We do, thanks. I'm live on YouTube, and then I'm loud and clear on YouTube as well. Okay, cool. So every strong, every first day we do a midday prayer, and it serves to help us to move through our strong with a greater sense of conviction and a greater sense of surety, And one of the reasons that I think this is important is what we're going to be discussing today. During one of our previous strongs, I think Chief Yuya had made the mention, just getting rid of bummy spirits, removing certain spirits or certain people or certain thoughts from your life, from your mind space, that may not necessarily be the most, they may not be the most conducive to you doing what you need to do throughout your 6 days of work. Peace to everybody coming into the space. Peace out of Cruz and Sister Deidre and Aki Isaiah. Peace Utu and Naya and Yolanda, Sister Yolanda. Yeah, peace. He was quiet as well. But moving through our struggles, sometimes we get so much sludge and muck on us just through moving through a secular space or moving along with adverse culture that we tend to forget who we are. It's almost like remember who you are. You tend to forget because you can be so distracted or inundated or worn down, or you may even numb yourself to what's going on around you, and you may forget to actually live. You may forget to actually do what it is you set out to do. If you, even if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it doesn't give you a free pass to say, okay, you're working on your life purpose, so you get a free pass. You don't have to be stressed out, or you don't have to go through any hardships, so you don't have to go through any character building, which is not true. A lot of people think that once I start living my life the way I'm supposed to, everything else is just going to be easy, which is like 9 times out of 10, it's going to hit those pressure points that you've been shielding a lot harder, Okay, a lot of people are piling on Clubhouse. Just reiterate, we're also live on YouTube. But so having that concept of getting rid of certain spirits that may hinder that process, we also have an issue with what we tend to do when we're confronted with the idea or the possibility that we may have some people in our camp or some thoughts in our mind that may be sabotaging us, or maybe taking advantage of us. And immediately you may feel like a sense of outrage. You may want to rally against them and be like, oh, we got to get rid of them. It's like, you might start making phone calls. Yeah, Johnny, you remember that $5 you owe me? Yeah, you can keep that. You know what else you can do? Stick it where the sun don't shine. You might want to tell people off. But a lot of times we take that as like a license to kill. And surely there is a level of removal that needs to happen. But what we don't take it as is a license to live, a license to move forward with our lives in a way that's productive or in a way that's sane. we want to move in like the opposite direction and just start killing things that are hurting us. But as we discussed in that same segment, a lot of the time that we spend removing things from our lives, we don't remove them from the root. And what happens is they just grow back. So it's like Hydra. Chief had broken that down in the Pallades segment. You keep cutting off the head of this serpent, and you think as long as I keep cutting off the head, eventually it's going to tire itself. But you're the one who's going to tire yourself out. So as opposed to trying to get rid of evil, you want to also balance that off with a level of righteousness and morality in watering and feeding the good in your life. And sometimes we forget that because, again, you walk through your life, your daily grind, you're just inundated with a lot of stressors, and you may shut down. You may not really want to deal with it, and that's where some of your demons sort of pop back up. Reinvigorated, like he's weak, get him. And this conversation or this topic really was sparked by a young brother I was speaking to last straw. He's in the chat. I won't call him out, but he had asked about, or he brought up the issue of removing certain thoughts from your mind. And usually when I'm having the same sort of issue, because I was actually having a similar issue when you brought it up, it was like, how do you remove certain thoughts from your mind? And it's like, you can certainly fast. That's an easy one, or at least it's a common one. Or you can meditate. Really try to source where those thoughts are coming from. But you can also have new thoughts, right? Or you can have more healthy thoughts, I should say. So instead of fighting off wicked thoughts, why not feed the good in your life? And you hear it a lot when people speak to you. The first thing they want to do is complain about who pissed them off. I don't have too many conversations where people come to me and they're like, you heard about so-and-so? Yeah, so-and-so just got that deal they're working on. It came through. All that hard work, all of those years of hard work, it actually came through. I'm actually glad for the brother. Or all of the things that you told me last strong, they actually worked. People coming to you with actual good news can sort of get drowned out by some of the things that have us peeved. You might be like, I don't want to hear about that. You heard about this person who just cut me off in traffic? Did I tell you about them? So you may actually want to wallow in the negatives because sometimes it feels good to be on the wrong side of things, or to be wrong, which is kind of paradoxical, but it's like the victim mentality. Like, you want to be the underdog, you want to be the one who's victimized, but you don't necessarily want to be the one who goes out and uplifts, or even being thankful, going out and saying, listen, you did this thing for me the other day. I really appreciate it. How can I reciprocate? That sort of energy. It's more like when you did something to me the other day and I didn't like it, how can I reciprocate? It's sort of that thing, like you're looking for a reason or a license to kill, right? As opposed to a license to live. And that's like a small shift in perspective. It's definitely not the whole of it, because when you talk about licensing is permission, right? So you can think of a couple of them off the bat, a couple of examples like a driver's license or business license. These are like special permissions. Like, you're permitted to do these things in a space where you may not have any authority. If I'm driving on quote unquote public roads, I still need permission from the government to say that I can drive on these public roads. It doesn't certify me as a driver. It says that I have certain permission to utilize these streets, or even the business. I buy land, or I lease it, and I pay taxes on it and everything. I go inside, and all the products that I pay for, they're mine, but I still need your permission to operate inside of the space. And I actually have to pay you, yearly. I can't just pay you once and get a license. I keep paying you. You know what I mean? So it's getting permission to do something. But in this space, I just wanted to say, just a friendly reminder that you do not need permission to live your life. It seems like an obvious thing to say, like, yeah, sky is blue, water is wet. What else is new? But yeah, you don't need permission to live your life. Now, living your life does need to be tempered with a certain degree of righteousness and a certain degree of morality. But I think we can sort of confuse those concepts with permission to abdicate our responsibility or abdicate our throne. So peace to everybody coming in, on the color side. Peace, Iris McKidd, peace to you, Chief Uya, peace, Sham the Joy, peace, Ross Kush. Yeah, peace all around, peace. But yeah, as we're moving through this next round, that was one of the major things that I wanted to, just remind you of as an affirmation or as an affirmative, because it seems all obvious, but it's easy to forget. It only takes 1 second to fall into a very emotional state, and it's very tempting to stay there, right? So another thing that I wanted to mention was once you really once you realize that there's a level of freedom to the way that you move through the world. Chief had done a segment on did a couple of segments on freedom and liberty, right? And your freedom exists in your dome, your freedom exists in your mind. And in that space, that's where you also have your kingdom. That's where you have your authority. So it's not like you need permission to move through life in a way that you see fit and in a way that's moral. You tend to abdicate that when you have all of these contracts that you're told that you should be making throughout your life, and you don't necessarily question why. But by the time you get to question why, you already, you owe people, because you've already signed up and contracted for certain things. And it's not necessarily always a monetary thing. It may be certain contracts that you make with people that you grew up with, people that you walk through life with, and you form certain friendships with. And what happens when you realize that you don't necessarily have to do it is you're presented with an option now, and you can say, I don't necessarily want to do this anymore, or this doesn't align with my culture anymore, and I want to move in this direction now. So what happens in that instance is you get the opportunity to like consolidate, right? And this is where Kuji Jagalia comes in. That from 14 keys, of course, you have the ability to determine what you're going to be. You have self-determination, so you can decide what you're going to be. Where your boundaries end and what exists on the inside and the outside of those boundaries. A lot of people don't make it inside those boundaries. Some people have to be removed because they weren't supposed to be in there. They infiltrated. And once you start removing people from your life, it can sort of feel like you have gaps. And that's where you have the opportunity to, like I said, consolidate. You can make it consolidate just means with, consolidate, to make solid. You're making yourself more solid and more strong, more firm, and everything that's inside of the borders, it has its placing, and again, just looking at how we can sort of numb ourselves to our own authority, or we may attempt to pass it off to someone else, even if we have like a teacher, like Chief Yuya, so you may have an instance where he's speaking to someone and they may take the opportunity to say, well, I don't know what to do. Just tell me what to do. It's like, no, I'm not going to tell you what to do. It's your life. You have to decide on what you're doing. And that came up in that freedom piece. You have responsibility now. Just so I didn't look at today's math, but today's mathematics is wisdom, all being born to freedom, culture freedom. Right, so you have the freedom part in there where you're responsible for what you're doing. You're responsible for the life that you create. And a lot of times we don't want to deal with that responsibility, but we also don't want to deal with, you don't want to deal with a lot of the pitfalls that come from giving up that responsibility and latching on to someone else like a parasite. And being like, okay, I'll just eat what you eat, I'll wear what you wear, I'll think what you think, but my morality now becomes your morality. So my karma is now your karma, And bear in mind, a license to, of course, we have the phrase, the license to kill. I learned about it from James Bond movies, like 007 and stuff like that. And I just looking up the phrasing or looking up the saying, the 00 was actually the license to kill, if you're working as an MI6 agent in that, fictional universe. I don't know if it correlates to the actual MI6. But yeah, you have the license to kill and the license to live, or you have the license to build, the license to destroy. But if you take that license and replace it with the word authority, you have the authority to live, or you have the authority to destroy. You have the authority to build your life any way you see fit. But again, you have to balance that kuji jagalia, or that self-determination, with the level of a degree of righteousness, right? So this is where our elders come in. Because they can tell you, yeah, you could do that, but I wouldn't recommend doing that, or if you do that, like you said, sometimes you need someone who's blunt enough or direct enough to tell you that you're going to mess yourself up, So those are really some of the points that I wanted to lay down for us to build on today. Not necessarily seeking for permission to live your life. And again, everybody can jump in whenever they, jump in at any time. The water's fine. You can jump in, raise your hand, I'll bring you in. But yeah, definitely just, okay, I think I hit the right button. Okay, I did. All right, cool. So just making sure that you take time to sit back, reassess, and see what kind of contracts you have out there. Another aspect of consolidation, sometimes you may hear in financial spaces, consolidation of debt, where you have a bunch of different loans or payments that you got going on. You might have a bunch of credit cards, and you don't want to cancel them, but you're in red. So what you do is you take out another loan that covers all of your various loans. You may have 6 or 7 loans. So the loan you take out covers those 6 or 7. So now you have one payment, right? And that one payment may help you to breathe a little easier. You don't have to keep track of a bunch of different contracts that you made. And it's very similar to the example that I given earlier. You're taking all of your energy that you had spread out that may leave you ineffective, and you're actually putting them all in one space. So now what you're paying on may not be that that job that you advise not to take in relation to actually starting a business, or it may be that credit card that you may have signed up for one too many. For me, one credit card is already one too many. But yeah, you may take all of those different things and put them into one space, right? So you may not be doing those things over there, but now you have this one space that you're putting like a single-minded effort into. Like Chief had mentioned, you have to be single-minded. You have that single-minded approach that you're looking into, but it's now your purpose, right? So you have this singular purpose that you're focused on, as opposed to all of these different hide heads that were just a distraction from the enemy. But you still have like a karmic responsibility to pay off those debts. But again, if you have elders that you're growing up around, you can sort of avoid that a little because they may have had to pay off some of those debts, But Raskus is on, and it's a tricky part. So willfully, there's no static or interference on the two platforms. But go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, peace, everyone. I will that y'all can hear me. Okay, I'm rolling in the car, so.
Okay, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Yeah, man. So I think it's a very good topic. License to live. When we think about authority, what I think of is like ownership. You know what I mean? And being accountable. You know what I mean? So it's like when you have that authority, like you said, freedom is responsibility. And many of us, weren't taught freedom as being responsibility. We were taught, or we adopted, that freedom is not having to care. You know what I mean? It's not having to not needing to care. So like many times you may be introduced to financial freedom. You know what I mean? Some of the thoughts I adopted in that, many others, that I talked to, we when we were very young, we looked at financial freedom as like, okay, I have so much money in the bank that I can just spend and do whatever I want. I can buy, consume as much as I want, whenever I want, without having to really care or plan or organize. I can just do whatever. So having that actual knowledge of what the right knowledge of what freedom is, being responsible, being mature, being emotionally mature, being being able to be efficient in your movement, being able to produce the intended result. That takes skill. And so some of the things that I remember at one point I had terrible credit. My early adulthood, because I was spending without a care. I wasn't being frugal. I was just, hey, I just want to live life. So I was like, getting myself in debt. And got to a point to where my credit, was it was terrible. I had debt. I had things in collections. I had people calling me, what have you. And I had to go through that process of like consolidating. So I had to consult with someone, who knew more than I did. And see, like, okay, what is it that I missed? Like, how did I get in this situation? You know what I mean? Like, what is it that I could have done better? And how do I get myself out of it now that I'm in it? So like, just taking out that wise counsel, that was one of the key turning points. So there were tools, resources that, were introduced to me, at that point, that were very useful, and through actually going through, that process of applying, what was provided to me, came more resources, and it seemed as if like the universe, seemingly or coincidentally, it seemed that, I was rewarded from, taking on the responsibility rather than, my previous habits of like just burying my head and just hoping it would go away. So I had to come to the reality that that was an immature, manner of dealing with, the situation. But, the result of it, the result of, choosing to live rather than to, choose death culture, which is, primarily what we're introduced to, propaganda. It's like consume, consume, consume. You don't have to create nothing. Just keep consuming. I look at that, that's a license to kill. That's a license to kill time. That's a license to kill, energy, license to kill, fruitful and productive thoughts. It's a license to kill fruitful and productive actions and results. So, choosing to live, was, can definitely be very rewarding. It can be very rewarding. We definitely.
Yeah, man, definitely. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, you were kind of choppy. Can you clear now?
Sorry, I'm riding through a little area where it's kind of low bad reception, so pardon me.
All right, no worries.
Now, I had to.
All right, no worries.
But yeah. So I was just gonna kind of finalize my point. Yeah, the license to live. We've been in essence, we've been already gifted that. We've been like, that was already like, given to us, by the Most High. We came with that, already. So we don't have to, place ourselves underneath a system that is, that is in essence trying to kill, our bodies, our minds, our spirit. They're trying to kill, anything that growth for us. You know what I mean? So like we have the need to like reconnect with the Most High and the highest order of things. Is the way back to actually living.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry, Ross, because you're getting progressively choppier. Yeah.
So I was making the choice to live. This is the last thing. This is the last sentence. I'm making the choice to live. Versus choosing death culture. You know what I mean? It's very rewarding, and it's really it's a must do. It's a must do. Otherwise, we live you don't really live. You're just growing to die. And suffering the consequences of such.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, peace to you, yeah. Welcome to the space.
Hey, experience everyone. Yeah, man, this has been good. I'm Ross, and definitely Max and Alexa, you two are in rare form. His signal was breaking up so much because you're really hitting on some powerful points there, sharing your own personal testimony. Kind of as you were speaking, I was thinking about like focus. those things that like a peripheral focus. And a lot of times things that in our peripheral focus become the situations that pull us away from living and pull us away from life. So that ability to become one-eyed, if you will, or single-minded becomes critical. I think about like today's mathematics. It's 22nd, so this 2 or wisdom, or being born to culture or freedom. The concept and idea of wisdom, which of course is the original woman, but wisdom being the manifestation of what we know when it's done in proper order. Because we can be wise to things that we don't know and try to figure out what just happened later. Sometimes we see lights in the sky and we don't know what it is, but we had the experience and we try to figure it out. Later, what did I just see? But those things being born to culture or freedom, when you're moving with the balance of wisdom, you have that 22, and 2 represents partnership. It's now I'm connecting to something, kind of like what Ron said earlier, like, finding that counselor, finding that guide that can help me to get from this point to this next point. What it does is that it removes you from the religious dogma, the social systems, the mental plane or grid and lockdown of alien culture. Because when you begin to move with your own wisdom, it disperses and removes away those grids that may try to lock you and keep you in, because now you're moving with your own culture. And number 4 is culture or freedom. So you're moving with your own culture, you're moving with your own freedom. But it's also this certain boldness that comes, there's a certain kind of energetic dynamic that comes when you're functioning that vibration of the 4. I mean, even in our Kabbalistic system, the 4 is related to the energy of or the color of blue or violet. So when you're kind of dealing with that blue or that violet, violet, excuse me, which is connected to the energy of Sagittarius, connected to the planet Jupiter, you start getting into more expansive and enthusiastic energy. Like you're excited about being able to go forward into one way of thinking, being able to move forward with a regenerative force. Like now you're able to be fruitful and you're fertile and you're kind of, moving forward with what it is that you want to do. That violet energy or that Jupiter energy. It also connects to Chesed, that particular sphere, which is that energy of mercy. But most importantly, like I was saying, it's the focus. When we start to live, when we start to exploit our license to live, we start to use certain tools. And like one of the things that we can all, just to provide some quick solutions that we can all make use of is, training the brain. A lot of times with living, sometimes we don't incorporate elements like meditation and even fitness. But these are the things that help to sustain our opportunities, our brain's opportunities to build those certain neural pathways. And building those neural pathways helps us to focus our attention. Sometimes we're in highly stimulating environments and we don't know how to reduce or filter out the chaos, because we haven't trained our brain. Oh, when it gets noisy, go down this pathway, go this way, or go that way. So sometimes we'll just do something like maybe put some earbuds in, and play our own music, or some people will play white noise at night, even to go to sleep, because their thoughts is just so much chatter, in that sense. But one of the things that you can do when that's happening is, like I said, fitness, meditation, it builds new neural pathways. But even doing things like taking notes, when you find your mind kind of bouncing all over the place like that, jot down a note. Because what that does, like even in this moment when I'm speaking, it gives your notes of the data. And when you do that, it gives it a place to kind of resolve to. So you can focus on the choices that you want to make. So that attention becomes vital in living, and recognizing that our attention is a process of selection as well. And when we begin to kind of choose what we want to give our attention to on the conscious level, then our world around us begins to respond to those decisions. It's just like when we focus our psyche, our brain, it makes a certain picture of the object that we want. But when we lack focus, we lose our cautiousness in selecting the pictures that our brain makes. So we begin to lose control. It's like a cycle. We lose control over the focus. We'll lose control over what we feel. We lose control over what we think. And therefore, we lose control over our life experiences. All because we didn't exercise our opportunities to choose to build neural pathways, so that way we can sit down. So when we were children, we can sit on the floor with our coloring book and draw pictures. We want to create the opportunities to draw the pictures that we want. Because as the world continues to expand and get crazier, there's more technological advancement, there's more environmental damage, there's more challenges that are presented to our attention. As we move further along within our adult lives, and it's like Ferris Bueller is at the end. Like life moves fast, so there's like this high speed that we go through, whether it's business or life or just travel or whatever, and we start to lose our ability to set the stage for our attentive activities. So there has to be like a better view where we're kind of looking over everything and paying attention to what stimuli competes with our ability to choose what we want to give our attention to. I would say that's exercising the license, if you will, and just understand something too, that in you're only granted a license for something that would otherwise be illegal to do. So that's why most licenses are a farce within themselves. As soon as you apply for the license, you are complying and admitting that this thing that I would want to do, like drive a car or whatever, or get married, in instance, is otherwise illegal. But you are licensing me to do something that is illegal. So when you kind of refer to the overlords, or defer, to the overlords, as far as like how can I live? Can I think about this? Can I create this and this within my attention? Can I create that within my focus? And you're going to these parasitical elite in order to figure out what your focus and attention should be. You are now you're making a statement and saying that if I don't get it from you, it will be illegal for me to do it for myself. I will be breaking some sort of law if I live, if I choose my own focal points, if I choose what I give my attention to, if I create my own neural pathways, if my viewpoint equals me. It's okay to write that equation. It's, viewpoint, me, not conservative, liberal, this and that. Me, that's my viewpoint, So the moment I contract with you to figure out how to do this, or can I do that, I'm already saying that me doing it for myself is a violation of a constant contract or even a governmental contract. So that's mine.
Definitely always give thanks, Chief, for adding on to the bill. When you mentioned even something as simple as coloring, I remember being young, and if you're using a coloring book and you colored the sky purple and French fries green, like someone's gonna pop up out of the woodwork like French fries aren't green, so now you gotta You gotta either say whatever or you gotta negotiate with it. No, sometimes they're green because you know you start trying to explain why your French fries are green. Like it's my color. You know, nobody calls you over here. Who asked you? You know, so sometimes it's like that. Yeah, peace out of Bruce. You know, give thanks for joining into the space. And I think we may have, you know, yeah, I think we may have some connection issues there. But yeah, exactly. When I is on YouTube, you know, stop looking at my paper and color it. And say, stop looking at my paper and color your own, you know, mind your own business. Exactly. You know, which is a very powerful statement. You know, mind your own business. You know, you have a whole life to govern and a whole life to direct, and you're over there looking at what I'm doing and trying to tell me what I'm doing is wrong. You know, and it's kind of different from like if you're sharing or you're building with someone like how we're doing now. We can all bring our experiences to the table and be like, comment on them, you know, and maybe if we see something that may be detrimental, but it's different from like that unsolicited, you should be doing it. There's nothing worse than more annoying than unsolicited should. You know, you should do it this way, you should do it that way, you know, which is I always like watching like shows that had royalty or kings. Like you can't instruct the king. You know, you can't just pop up on the king and say, you should do it this way. We shouldn't invade this country. It's like you gotta ask permission from the king to even speak. You know what I mean? You gotta ask them like, if I may, your king, I mean, your majesty or whatever. You know, you have to preface whatever you say with the ideation that I'm saying something, but you can reject it, you know. And me even saying this is sort of like encroaching on your boundaries. So I'm being very careful about what I'm about to say. But sometimes people like you get so used to being able to just say anything, you know, especially in more densely populated areas or cities. It's like things are so busy. I don't necessarily, I may not necessarily have the time to stop and tell you off, you know. But when it's a lot less people around, it's easier to say, no, listen, you need to back up. You know, you're encroaching on my territory. You know, but sometimes it gets easier to apply that should a little bit more because your space is so small and so crowded that people tend to fall in line and do the same thing. So you can stand up a lot more easily too if you do something a little differently, or if you do things the way you do them. You know, it's easy for people to say, well, 99.9% of people I see don't wear the cap backwards. So why are you doing it? You know, or most of the people I see have red cars. Why is your car blue? You know, there's always something that's like one of these things just doesn't belong here, and that's where you have to really have that self-shape, that self-awareness, to say, nah, this is how I move. This is what I do, and I know why I move this way. You know, I don't necessarily have to break down my philosophy to you, but I'm moving in this way because this is what works for me, and this is how I exercise my righteousness with the authority that the Most High has given me. You know, so that's between me and the Most High. I'm not infringing on the way that you move, but you're looking at me as though me moving the way I ought to, or me moving the way that I see fit, based on my morality and my relationship with the Most High. It may be an affront to you because it doesn't match up or line up with what you're doing. You know, and it may be even more of an affront that you see that it's working. Well, how is he not, you know, paying that bill? You know, how is he living without a credit card? Or how is he living without needing to buy something every straw? How is he living without a Christmas tree in December? You know, or without lights? You're the only person in the community or in the neighborhood without lights. So now you have to get around other people who share the same culture. That helps you to exercise your freedom a lot more. Just looking at YouTube, Sister Deidre says, those are the ones who have given away their license to live and are trying to recruit. Misery loves company. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
Great point. Something that came to mind, from the comments you read, with Emaniah, like that term or that phrase, I should say, mind your own business. A lot of times from my experience, when I have, met those, persons that tend to, get into other people's business unsolicited, or like going back to like that self-righteous reason, segment, just listening to the words, like mind your own business, a lot of times, there's a rejection, for them to like dig into their own like mental economy, or their own to reap the rewards or dig out the fruits, of their own cipher, their own economy, and so they, try to gain the value of, digging in someone else's land, digging in someone else's territory, but, on contrary, on the other side of the coin, the minding of your own business, can be fruitful, very rewarding, when we are pulling out, those experiences, that, set our intention, much like Jesus was.
Yeah. He's still there. Yeah, I'm sorry, you cut out for like 5 seconds, but the last thing I heard was Chief. The Chief saying about Untitled.
All right, I'm like, hold on for a second. But as Chief was explaining, however, like I'd like to draw an example of like the difference between like a W-2 and a 1099, or a contractor versus a company employee. As a company employee, what I mean. Your business is those who govern over you. Who you agree to govern over you. For whatever time of span that you agreed to. Versus like when you are contracting, it's you have actual terms and you're really like a partner. So like if our terms are in sync, or I should say if our purpose are in sync and we're able to align on certain imperatives, then we can explore the benefits, reap the benefits of said partnership. You know what I mean? So like that like it's a different mindset, than ultimately what we were propositioned, at a young age, here in Babylon. That's what I'm gonna say. The exploitation is to their benefit, versus us minding our own business and like really pulling out, the jewels and the benefits, that were, that were in essence promised to us, by the Most High. It just serves as a totally different type of experience and a different type of journey. When you look and compare the two, there really isn't a comparison. It's life or death.
Yeah, to we start to go through a lot of the different statements that people will make in order to wrangle and wrestle us into a certain position that they feel most comfortable with. Because often that's what it is. If I've reached a certain level of intelligence, we may have even been journeying together to some degree, I feel most comfortable interacting with you at my last stage of elevation. And then if I grow beyond that, then we can readdress our contract, if you will, at that point. But I would say, we're talking about the should, or master mental, like you brought up the should. There is, I would say, one should that I would say, because shoulds are, they are very dangerous. They're shoulds are like flattery. They're typically used for manipulation. But there is one should, and the one should is to be honest with yourself. If there's ever any time you feel the urge that you should say, I should say this, that's the one rule. In reality, that's the key to all of this. Because once you're honest with yourself, you're able to have a great sensitivity to truth outside of yourself. But it begins with that internal honesty. And most of what you may experience in people's manipulation or those attempted manipulations, or even sometimes when you're trying to manipulate yourself, is that you're not being honest with yourself. And honesty is not the same as honorability. Honesty is not the same thing as truth either. But you were speaking about different people like organizations, and I can say as someone who's the head of an organization, people come and go often because they refuse to be honest with themselves, and they want you to comply with their internal fantasy. And when you don't, they get very uncomfortable. And oftentimes they go outside and put on a costume to comply with that internal fantasy. It's the first thing. Like I always notice, and I knew as soon as people leave, they jump on their social media. It's like within the first 7 days, they're putting up a bunch of posts and memes, trying to make their statement because it doesn't require any real work. When you're inside of Anu, I make it work. You come in with a situation or an issue, you're gonna work on that. Period. This is not a rest haven. So when you get to a point where they're you have to write a commitment letter when you join. What are you committed to do inside of this space? And a lot of times people are not honest with themselves with those commitment letters. I'm going to fix this. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to finally address this. But if they're just honest with themselves, your commitment letter. I'm not telling you what to do this because I will shout you out if you try and be slick. But it could be my commitment is I'm going to grow. That's it. Now, to what degree, I don't know. Maybe a little, maybe a lot, but I'm going to make some kind of it. Now, of course, again, if anybody writes a commitment letter like that, it's going to be deleted. You're going to be made to write it again. But the point I'm saying is, because that ain't you honest, I just told you that, But it could just be that. But when you start all these elaborate this and that, if you're being honest and it is that elaborate, so be it. But when you're being dishonest with yourself, you create this repercussive waveform that you now have to answer to later. And 9 times out of 10, 10 times out of 10, when that person is called to answer those waveforms, they leave. They make up some reason, I got to go focus on school, or I don't really know what I want in my life and in my journey. And, they make up something stupid. Y'all don't like me and trust me anyway. We got done with y'all don't trust me. I'm not supposed to leave. Or y'all cited that this is what's wrong with me. So I'm going to leave. But I thought you convinced yourself to come in here to work on what's wrong with you. Why would you leave if you just discovered what's wrong with you? Because you weren't being honest with yourself. So I would say that's the should golden rule. If there's ever any should that should be, or that all of humanity can impose upon themselves, because it's a personal thing, is that everyone should be honest with themselves, regardless
Definitely give thanks for the TV. And also, what you were speaking about just now reminds me of the phenomena of lying on your resume. But in this case, like the resume is like your life. So you're lying about what you've done in your life and which you're actually committed to. You know, you think that you want to just get hired, you know, and maybe I'll fix everything on the back end without anyone knowing that I really can't do a PowerPoint or I'm not proficient in Microsoft Excel. You know, it reminds me of that sort of situation. I've seen it with certain people who lie on their resume. And when it starts coming out that they don't actually know what they're doing, they start throwing other people under the bus. Usually people who are working under them is lying on your resume to get a good job, not lying to get like lying to flip burgers. You might get a managerial position and you start throwing other people who do know what they're doing under the bus because you want this position. It's a very dangerous type of person to have on the inside. Yeah. I see Coach Maria and Shannon Joy. Peace. Feel free to unmute.
Peace, everyone. I want to say peace. Okay, I will project.
There you go.
Okay. Something Chief said reminded me about life that death was on the tongue, and then that links to the license part because what came to mind was contracts, and then I believe Pastor Anna mentioned it. So we're signing all these contracts with our words, which I think Chief explained what is a license, but what came to mind for me was that words are licenses. And but then that kind of got me thinking about counsel, wise counsel, and if wise counsel is associated with having a license, who's issuing the license and where does that fit into a parent's job? So I just wanted to pose that question.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
How does wise counsel link to license?
Oh, okay. That was actually something that I thought about when this topic of discussion came to mind, because a lot of times people, I think I mentioned it earlier too, how people try to they try to utilize wisdom from their elders as sort of like a cosign to do what they want to do. Or and I use you as an example. You may go to Chief and be like, I don't know what I should do, and then there's like the silence, and you sort of wait for him to fill in the blanks. Like, all right, here's what you need to do. This is the answer to number 6. Number 15, you got to answer it like that. And here's how you draw the graph for number 25. It's like, no, you're responsible for the way that your life goes. Now, what wise counsel will do is help you to reach a state like Chief just mentioned earlier, where you're honest with yourself. Wise counsel will ask you where you are, as opposed to they'll make you aware of where you are, as opposed to telling you where you need to go. That's like sort of the difference between them. Anyone can just say, "Oh, you just go over there, you'll be fine," and then when you're not fine and you turn around, they're not standing there anymore because they honestly weren't really responsible for what happened to you anyway. You put your life in their hands and they told you to do and you agreed. It's a choice. So that's like the difference between them. Like, you can foolishly go to someone who will give you like advice, as opposed to giving you direction or giving you righteous guidance or righteous counsel, and they will steer you wrong because it's like darts at the dartboard. Well, here's what I think you should do, and then so what? They'll always be skinning again. So no matter if they're right or wrong, they're fine.
That
The one who's in danger is you.
makes sense. I guess that brings me back to children. So even as children, we still make choices regardless of our parenting.
Yeah, for sure. As children, you still make choices. They may not be very informed choices in terms of external information, but you make choices based on what you got, what you work with. If I got purple crayon and green crayon, then we got green French fries and purple sky. That's how it goes. But I chose to color it that way. Even if I got a full box, I like green, so that's why we would color it. But that might not be the wisest choice, but it is what it is. I'll be honest, I like green. I want to see green stuff on my paper. That might be as far as I thought about it.
Greetings.
Peace.
Yeah. Hi, peace everyone. Peace to the guests as well as family. So, looking at the title and just thinking about all that had been shared already, at the three words kept playing in my head: thoughts, dreams, reality. Right? Thoughts, dreams, reality. And even though like dream is a thought plane, we could get so stuck in thoughts, right? Ones can get so stuck in thoughts because like the thought allows us to play out things in our head, right? Instead of actually doing them. And I think that's even comes back to some of the examples of coloring certain things in specific colors. Like, there's that level of thoughtful, but if you're actually living out of doing, the living out and doing becomes very different, and that reality requires something so much more than just a thought, right? The problem is we're wired to experience things through reality and thought, and in many ways we aren't able to differentiate the difference. Differentiate between what is real and the experience of what is real and that thought, and that can become very dangerous, and I think we can rob ourselves of, employing that license to live because we're stuck in thought and not actually living out a reality. That's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, give thanks. Go ahead, Sister Shadow. You got to pull up out of the shadows when she right.
That kind of reminded me of the minding your own business statement that we were discussing earlier, because it's not thinking your own business, it's minding your own business. So while you're speaking, Sister Maria, I was thinking that the minding is connected to the vision that we were given to even have the license to live. Just wanted to add that.
I think another interesting thing with that, when Sister Maria was talking about thoughts, thoughts can be toxic and addicting. Overthinking is an addiction. No different than social media, eating too much, ingesting too much sugar. And thoughts don't necessarily align themselves with creation, in the same way that an ideal does. You can have many thoughts and not necessarily congeal or pull those thoughts together so that they become a concept and actually drive your purpose and your life concept forward and advance it. You need to have a lot of thoughts. And that goes to some of the peripheral focus I spoke about earlier. And when I just look at the word life, license to live. Life is like thoughts can become very massive, in the sense that, sometimes it's fun to meander and go through your thoughts and play with them, but they don't necessarily have to create or produce. They don't necessarily have to. It's just like I could have a conversation with a person, say woman, and we can share thoughts back and forth, and it doesn't really take us anywhere. It's not really building. It's just like sometimes that happens in a disagreement. You're just shouting thoughts at each other. But you only get to a point of building when you're sharing concepts together. When you're sharing completed plans and ideas together. Now we're actually building. But anything before that is really just mental masturbation. So when you look at like the concept license to live, in order to live, we have to go beyond thought into concept. There are whole communities that exist in the Anglosphere that are built around thought. And thought and feeling are really synonymous. I feel this way, so therefore this is what I am, right? And they are so dead set on just exploring the concept of masturbatory thought and not producing or creating anything, whether that be physical or mental, that they even march for their right. They march with pride for their right to just explore thought, but never congeal it into the positive and negative, or the masculine and feminine necessity, or the dark and light necessity of bringing those thoughts together into a concept that produces something. Or like we say in, the supreme mathematics, it's that one and that two that bring forth that three, or that knowledge and wisdom that bring forth that understanding, or that original man and original woman that bring forth the original child. But some just meander into one. It's just a lot of sword play, hockey sticks. So it's just thought. And you can have thought or thought or tahuti. But until you pair tahuti with ma'at, you don't actually produce anything. So there's no life in that, in overthinking. But there's life when those thoughts come into concept. Now you're exercising your divine license to live, or to forward liberty in life.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for that, TV. A couple of things came to mind as you were speaking. One was the thoughts aspect, and even like what Sister Maria was saying, sometimes you can have certain thoughts, like what came to mind is like what I call shower arguments. Like when you may have a conversation with someone on the street, and then they say something a little slick, and it may catch you off guard. Every once in a while, a rare time it catches you off guard. Sometimes you may let it roll off your back. Sometimes you may have something to say. Or sometimes it's like, where did that come from? You go home and you're taking a shower and you're like, you know what I should have said? I should have said this. And then you start recreating the whole argument in your mind. and it always goes your way in your mind. But that's what made me think about the thoughts. But you might see the other person and never bring it up. So it just exists in your head now. That's your silent victory. When you're speaking about concepts, Chief, it made me think of the superhero Green Lantern, and the green power ring. Green of course represents your will, and the green ring was it was powered by willpower, and basically you had to use your mind or your mental willpower, and you could channel it and concentrate it through this ring and create constructs, what they would call. So your power was basically limited by your willpower and your imagination, but they were paired together so closely because you need that focus. You need to be able to say, all right now I need a brick wall or else I'm gonna get hit. So he can conjure a brick wall, or I need to stop this person before they hurt someone. I might conjure up a cage, but everything in my mind has to focus on one thing. If he begins to lose focus, his constructs are weaker. strong as well as the strongest focus is, the stronger the constructs are. So that came to mind, and as you were all sharing about just the mental space and thoughts and focus, but Albert Cruz is back in space. You there, brother? Okay.
Yes, that's enough. Sorry,
There he is.
Almost my apologies between connected to the device. But give thanks for the moment, man. Give thanks for the journey. Blessings to Chief Master Man like Ralph Hirsch, found systems. So a couple of things. Even as you were speaking about constructions now, that exact example that you gave ties into the comment I was made initially. In the annual spiritual training, when Chief speaks about focus, and most importantly about focus, he speaks about the images that we construct. And obviously, we pride ourselves with being able to multitask, but to focus on one thing is, it's a journey that a lot of us possibly, depending on the efforts that we will never achieve in this lifetime. But one of the things that I was actually holding on to as a thought, because first having the level of exchange at the initial of the clubhouse, was we talk about the right to live, but most importantly, the responsibilities that come with the right to live. So if we don't put the effort to actually move out of some of the spaces in the death culture, things of the sort, one of the responsibilities that we have in this lifetime is to actually prepare the way for the other extensions of ourselves, which is our children and the generations that are coming. So I think about that case with the Anu way, when it speaks to we only supposed to be laborers for one generation. So if you think about the things that we are supposed to accomplish in our generation to make sure that we don't have some of these responsibilities, let me rephrase that the responsibilities that we would have taken on in this generation, that we walk in and hold the responsibilities and bearers of the guard of. So when our children, our sons more specifically, and our grandsons, when they come, they have another level of responsibility to hold on to. But if we don't accomplish certain things, what happens is they now have to take care of some of the rights or some of the wrongs and right some of the things that we were unable to accomplish. And that comes as a result of it.
Oh, man.
In the Matrix.
Yeah, but you just flowing too. Like, I don't know. As soon as Raskus and our crew start flowing, that's when the connection issues start. It's too much fire. Yeah, but definitely, which we're building on with the focus and being able to leave something behind, after being a responsible steward over, is a very key piece. I came across a term. It's called the black tax, and basically it refers to the phenomena of parents not necessarily being able to hold their own financially. So now what happens is, instead of having children, who are propelled forward, they're actually held back by their parents' debt, or maybe their financial irresponsibility, or maybe even a lack of financial education. They don't want their children to be held back, but it's like they can't get their heads above water, and as a result, you have children. They may be missing out on school, to work a job, to help make ends meet, or they may have to drop out entirely and work a job just to make sure the lights stay on. Or you may have children, being a surrogate parent, because a lot of times in these situations, one of the parents are missing. That is usually the case, but you do have a lot of instances where both parents are in the home, but the children are taking a lot of their focus away from their future and what they're building on, and it goes towards paying off debts, which is different from, our family needs a doctor, so I'm going to go ahead and be a doctor and come out and contribute to the family. Or our family needs a mechanic, or our family needs a lawyer. things like that. It's more along the lines of we just ate the last can of tuna, and we need some more food to cover, for our young sisters. It's a situation that you may not have chose in terms of being on this plane here. You may have wanted to do something else, but it may be the situation that you chose to be born into, but it just reminded me so much of that situation. Or even coming into a space where you may be starting a new educational endeavor, or you may be starting a new a career opportunity where some training is required, but the person who trains you doesn't know what they're doing. So they give you all the wrong tools, and then you realize that you have to piece everything together from what everyone is doing, because everyone is doing their own thing, and you have to look at the system and figure it out for yourself to figure out what's the right way to do things, or am I in the wrong space? It's similar to the comment that Chief left on YouTube. If people have the time to look at your paper, it's usually because they've abandoned their own work. I would like to know where your creativity and uniqueness derives from. You might be in a space where you do not know how to resource. Going back to the earlier points that I made, you may be in a space where you're numbing yourself, or you're so bogged down from all the grind from walking through some of these spaces that you don't necessarily have that connection anymore. You haven't taken the time to reestablish it, and you may even forget, that this is a connection that you have. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not, I'm not this person who's supposed to be walking around flipping burgers all day. I actually have a purpose, So you're not living a durational life anymore. You're living a life that has focus, but that focus can sometimes be blurred out based on your culture, right? Based on your perception of freedom or your perception of liberty, which are two different concepts that TPU has broken down. You can check out those segments on Enlightenment and Transformation. But yeah, I see Hamza L has joined the space.
Quick question, Master Man. Did you the term you used, was that black tax?
I think so. Yeah, that's the black tax. That's the term that I heard of.
Okay, because there's also another meaning for that, which is kind of similar, and it's the tax. Well, it's not real tax, but it speaks about in dominant households when certain individuals have to pay a portion or give a portion of what they make to take care of other individuals in the family who are not as well off. You may have that grandmother, grandfather who has no retirement, and so you're paying their bills and, their doctor visits and things like that. Or, because that concept is very common on the continent. That's, where I used to see most of it. It's sort of understood, if I was a father living on the continent, it's understood that when I get a certain age, my son is going to take care of me. It's not, a guess of what, will I have enough for retirement? Will I go into my home? No, my son will take care of me. And that's the oldest son responsibility. So, especially in South Africa, when I was there, that term was used specifically, black tax. And that was you're taking care of your older relatives, or you have a nephew or a little brother, a little sister, or a niece that you're sending to school or sending to university or whatever like that. And a lot of that we have it in the States too, but a lot of it is because there's a lack of inheritance, or because of some of the discriminatory practices that people went through years ago when they couldn't get homes for houses and things like that. So when it came time for them to retire, they really had nothing to give to the younger generation, nor did they have the assets that they were able to establish for themselves, because they were just in survival mode. I got to take care of the children, make sure everyone is able to go off to school and make their own life or whatever. So they weren't really able to store anything for themselves. You find a lot of that in the southern states in the U.S., not so much in the north, partly because most people from the north, especially people melanin dominant, they retire in the south, but you still find that prevalent here in the states as well, where you have those who maybe left, moved to the city, moved up north, are sending money back home. And that was, another term that I came across, that I experienced and saw for the black tax.
Oh, okay, that's real interesting. It's sort of similar in the Caribbean as well, where you would have the parents work their fingers to the bone just to send their children off to school in foreign or in the UK or something like that in order to make a better life. So the inheritance is like this education that I'm working to give you. That's like as far as it goes. Sometimes they may have some land in the family, or maybe even some cars or some property or something like that. But the inheritance, at least from my experience on my economic level, is really not that substantial. It's more so like I'm sacrificing all my time and energy and effort to make sure that you have a better life. And if I fall short of that, then it's going to go in the reverse direction to where you're taking a hit from the time you should be in school or should be getting your education, and you're putting your energy into a job just to help to supplement income.
Right. It's deep because a lot of times, like when you speak about inheritance, oftentimes the inheritance is more of a burden than an actual asset. Because no one ever really knew how to work it. Whether it's land or a house or something like that. I mean, obviously not obviously, but unfortunately, it's rarely functional business. Because you can't inherit a hustle. And sometimes we don't know the difference between a hustle or a business. But a business you can inherit because it doesn't require you to be present. It has employees and it has a system that runs it so that it can be handed over to someone who knows nothing about the actual technical aspects of said business. But often we don't inherit things like that. If we do, it would be something, if it does resemble a business, it'll be a hustle, and we'll have to stop what we're doing to run it or just, dispose of it. If it's land, a lot of times it might not even be legally structured properly as far as the land was to properly inherit it. We might have to go to war with relatives and things like that. So it's interesting when you mention the thing about the inheritance, because a lot of times we don't structure our estates properly, unfortunately. So when we do transition, the inheritance is just a liability, or like you said, it's minimal. You look in North America, statistically, for African Americans, I'll use that term, the average median household is $24,000 a year, compared to Caucasians in America, or white America. The average median household is $188,000, household income. So when you start looking at like inheritance, it's like, all right, well, I averaging out, and these are like the numbers in 2021. So if I'm averaging out at $24,000 a year, what does my Social Security look like? Probably getting like $10,000 a year, if that. So really, what is there to hand over in that sense? Really, I'm the liability. You got to take care of me. You got to drive me back and forth to church. You got to, come in and bring some food by and whatnot, or whatever, because the income levels are so low, and that's a if you can make more and do more, you should do more. That's an honorable principle. The poor righteous teacher concept is a real thing. It's a very real thing, but everything has its time, and all things must evolve. And part of your self-defense is not only your psychic self-defense, your spiritual self-defense, your legal self-defense, your physical self-defense, but also your physical self-defense. You know, and we live in a day and time now where there's no reason for spiritually minded, intelligent people to be impoverished, whether that poverty be mental, whether it be a lack of currency flow. You know, because again, it's a part of also your responsibility going into your elderhood. You know, because you leave too many liabilities for those to come after you. And I know that's a big thing in the culture community. Like everybody wants to run up into the woods and free up. We just gonna go live off the land. You know, and there's very little thought of the children. You know, like that's cool for you. Maybe you were not able to make it in the world. You know, so you're gonna go live up in the woods and make a bunch of babies, whatever. But how will they compete in the world market? What are they inheriting? What intellectual property are they inheriting from you? It's cool, yeah, they can grow food and you can teach them how to bathe in the river and the creek and stuff like that. That's awesome. But there's no reason why you can't have a balance between the two. You know, you can buy a 4x4 vehicle and you can stay in the woods sometimes and you can come into the city sometimes to get your money. You know, or just not in the city, you know, be among the world market to conduct commerce. You know, so I just think that, you know, when you said the word inheritance, it just made me think about the liabilities that we often inherit from our elders who didn't know how to properly structure their economic model.
Yeah, man. It even makes me think of the concept of old money. You know, people who had money that, or businesses or assets that they passed on through generations. You know, you think about your Rothschilds or, you know, families like that that have really established themselves throughout generations. This is how we move. Like, this is what we've built up. And this is how we move, and this is how we maintain what it is that we've established. You know, and then you would think of certain people like, who's the richest person in the world? You know, black person. You know, people start saying like Oprah and things like that. It's like, all right, how's her children doing? You know, let's see her children. I don't even know. I don't like. She might, but I don't know if she has children. You know, where's that legacy going after Gene Stedman kicked the bucket? You know.
But you know, the thing is that's the state of being. Whether you do have children or you don't have children, whether you're single or whether you're married, and all truth and reality. Let's say in North America, one of the most unwise things to do is have children, especially for a man. You know, you are putting everything you built at risk. You know, of half of it. Again, look at the divorce rate. Look at the divorce rate. We got a 70-some% divorce rate. So you mean to tell me I'm going to build all these things up, get married, have children, and there's a 78% chance that half of it is going to be taken away from me? And it may not be what I want to do. You know, and again, I'm not advocating for not have children or whatever, but I definitely see it from different perspectives. Yeah, we do cite Oprah a lot, but she's not this. Women who have more money than Oprah. You know, I think that's part of like understanding how wealthy people move. You know, one of the things, you know, being able to cite 5 melanin-rich owned Fortune 500 companies off the top of your head. I think that's an important exercise to always present to your children. You know, who was the first black billionaire? You know, who was the first black billionaire on Wall Street? You know, you go through these different things like this, you know, but yeah, having children, getting married and whatever, that's programming from the overlords, man, at the end of the day. Because that's not what be fruitful multiply means. You know what I mean? Because what was the fruit? The fruit was the seeds of consciousness that existed within the garden that you ate of. You did eat the fruit before I kicked you out. So you already have seeds that you walked out with. And that's what I mean. Let me go have 15 children. Let me go have 20 children. And they multiply and they multiply. I mean, you can do that. But we being fruitful and multiply is spreading, sharing the consciousness. That's being fruitful. You know what I mean? And depending on what your mission is or what your journey is, it may mean that I'm not gonna have children. Legacy, who cares? And there's a portion, and I have children, so I mean I don't think I'm like advocating, for sterilization or anything like that. But what I am saying is that there is a portion of narcissism in some of this when we think about that. I want my president to be here when I go. Well, what's so special about you? You need to still be here after you die. You know what I mean? So it's like sometimes we gotta look at that like, legacy maybe, but I don't necessarily feel like I want to see a bunch of Oprah after she's gone. Like I would like to see a bunch of other people. To be honest with you, I would love to see, some of the beautiful and powerful. Let me see more Robert Mugabe's. I want to see that legacy expand forward. There's certain people on the planet who are forces, and we value and we honor Oprah, but mainly because of the financial empire that she's built, not because of any great consciousness that she's put out into the world. So a legacy is money. We already got that legacy active. So I would just say sometimes we look at legacy and we're skipping over the part of it, really being an adventure in narcissism. That's not for everybody. I have a legacy, and I'm gonna maintain my legacy, but it's for the reason of when I die, the work that I've been called to do isn't gonna be finished. And sometimes your job, your legacy is to tell a story. You ain't gonna finish it. There's certain things that you are gonna aspire and strive to do, and you ain't gonna get done. You're just not. You know that. But you start the motion and you keep telling the story, and then maybe some behind you will say, okay, I'll pick up that baton, I'll grab the baton and keep it moving and keep the work going until the work is no longer necessary. So I don't know, it's just different angles.
Yeah, it reminds me of what you said earlier about just being honest with yourself. Does the world need more of me? But we have a couple more people in the space. We've also been on for a minute. So if anyone has anything else to say, speak now.
Shalom to the space. What I was really I actually got with what Chief just presented, because I've never heard the concept of black tax, but I do notice it now that it's mentioned. And I'd say like I'm experiencing that right now. So for me, it's like mind blowing that is even a concept around black tax. It's just putting up a fence, right? I'm inheriting black tax from fencing, right? Because my father did put up a fence line. Now you got people infringing on the property. So like now I got to go out and it's become a burden because it's a property that is going to cost you a lot of money. And it's like, and I spoke to him like, well, why you haven't put up this fence when you've been a steward for the past 20 years since the transition of our grandfather, right? And it's like now, like you can see that like not only inheritance is just something you get down, but it's like it has to be structured to where it doesn't become a burden, like Chief's saying. So with that, I know we've been on for a while, so I just wanted to share it as well. Black tax is a real thing. I didn't even think about it until it actually just recently happened to me. I give thanks for that bill too, and that knowledge of it.
Yeah, man, definitely give thanks for your share. But I definitely give thanks to everyone. Oh, we got someone popping up. Okay, who's this? Who we got? Okay. Peace, brother.
Peace, my best over there. How you doing? Yeah, everything speaks. What's going on with you? Cool. I just got back from Family Academy. The fam. We always sit out, Sunday and stuff. And I wanted to share. because this inheritance thing, it really hit me because, my pop, he's always talking about what he wants to do for us, as his children, and the stuff that he's doing and what he's leaving for us, the legacy. And I think that it's important that we actually, as if anybody that's someone who's putting together like a plan for the children, to actually be invested in what that plan is and to know the different parts of it. Because I remember you talked about, I forget what family it was, but I think it was the Vanderbilts. You said that they weren't good stewards. Yeah, they weren't good stewards of what it is that they came into inheritance of and ended up losing. So in order not to lose that inheritance and to keep it going, we have to necessarily be invested in it and know exactly what it is that we're getting into. That's what I wanted to share. Another thing is that we drum. So like we're drummers. We do drum circles, community drum circles, drum programs around the city of Charlotte. And when my pop is in Ghana, he goes back and forth to the continent, we can hold it down. I'm talking about we as his children. We hold it down when he's not there. So us being able to hold that down is like we've inherited, that skill set. We've inherited the ability to do these different programs and stuff that can bring us a certain level of wealth without him even being present. So I know for him that has to do something where he's like, okay, I know they can hold it down when I'm gone, So that's what I wanted to share.
Yeah, man. Give thanks, man. It's good. I'm delighted to have you in the space, man. We talk about family legacy. Knowledge of family, and speaking about what he's saying in terms of that, I remember we were going somewhere, man. My pops and your grandfather, and we were building on just different, because they used to brag, not that there was any competition, you know what I'm saying, but your grandfather, my pops, was always like, Kojo's doing this, Peru's doing this, Kojo's, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I remember, your grandfather was like, yeah, South Africa, I made this much this year. You can't say the number. But we was just building on how it circles back. You know what I mean? So it's not only what we give to our seeds in terms of that, in terms of the drum, we grew up in the drum. We all, the whole family's drum. We're drummers, drumming household. My father's, congas, we're drumming household. So, a lot of conversations around that. And of course that the drum is such a special instrument because of the way it unifies. It's different than a house full of keyboard players, or a house full of guitarists. I grew up as a child hearing this word syncopation. It's probably the first big word I ever learned. Syncopation and everything. Syncopated rhythm. Here, take the cowbell. Why you play the triangle? All right, you're gonna play the bongo. All right, you're gonna play that congo. You're gonna play everybody's playing and bouncing off of each other. And it becomes a mentality that you begin to move through the world with every day. How do I find my place in this orchestra? And how do I not get in the way? And how do I embellish the soundscape? And, Bob was speaking about it, he's like, yeah, I made this much this year. Just made me think about how we circle back to the elders, that cycle of life we talk about. So, we teach our children certain things, just like all my children can fight. Everybody that's going through, serious self-defense training and things like that. That's part of my offering. Of course, the music and all of this, these things are sacred to me. But, when I'm out, especially with my sons, they flank me. Automatically, I never told them to do that. But if we're walking down the street, it's always one is on the left, one is on the right. And it's that circle back. It's like, oh, we got you, Bob. Not that I need to protect anything, but the point is, just to kind of feed into what Niall is saying. It's like, it's beautiful.
self-sustaining loop that becomes your self-sustaining community in that sense, because the elders have a place in something to do, and the youth have a place in something to do. And all of it begins with how you systematize your family, systematize your community. And it's through that establishment of that system that everyone can slide into place very quickly. I've drummed with the family before, and I can drum with the family because it's a system. Oh, we playing this rhythm, you know. And it's been times when Kojo was just like mumbling in my ear while this other noise around, like, all right, you gonna play this? I'm like, what? The last part. It's a ding, 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 or it's a ding, 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 ding. You know, yeah. You know what I'm saying? But that's the beauty of it, because we all came up in the same system. I came up in the system. My pops doing the same thing to me. You know, you take these congas, you're gonna play this part. Boom, boom. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do that song. We're gonna do Oye Como Va. Alright, you're gonna do this. Boom, you know, whatever. So, yeah, that system is important, and when you guys establish that system, it allows you to expand in any direction you feel like expanding in a very quick and efficient manner. And the Vanderbilts didn't have that. The Rothschilds have that. Even though the Wall just took this crazy $19 million hit because of Walmart, you know, what the stock market's doing. It was like 3 days ago they lost $19 million. But they have a system. They have family meetings. The Rothschilds have family meetings, have a system where they have a whole team that works just for the family and their corporate interests. So you can't blow money. It's impossible, because, you know, when you're born into that family, you're contracted into a certain system automatically. Very similar to how when we're born into this secular world, if you haven't established a family culture first, there's already certain contracts that you sign into. A birth certificate, okay, boom. Social security number, boom. So you already have these contracts that now oblige you to certain experiences. If you did not establish a family culture first, which establishes that freedom, that's why that number 4 is culture or freedom. So my children were born into a culture, so they're free of the machinations of the secular world. Just like what I was speaking about, like, yeah, Pops is not here, Pops is in God. We got, you know, we already know what our culture is, and it's not dependent upon anyone else's cycle or clock, you know, or our elder, now his grandfather. Like, oh, I made this much bread with my son, with my son and my grandchildren, you know, this year or whatever, because we've established that freedom culture. So
yeah, man, definitely give thanks for your shares, Brother Nile, and of course, Julia. Is there anyone else? You know, sound like Brad Pitt and Troy. Is there no one else? You know, is anyone else that wishes to speak? If not, we can go ahead and close out. Definitely give thanks for the build, for everybody coming through. You know, Brad Kush, Sister Sam Joy, Sister Maria, L, Niles, Chibuya, and no one speaks. So we're gonna go ahead and head out, but definitely tune in on Thursday. You know, we have Brother Lowe. I think it's Brother Lowe. Yeah, I think Brother Lowe's coming back on Thursday, and we're switching up the roster a little bit going into next month. But Brother Lowe is coming through with another breakdown, and then we also have Shemanu every Friday. You know, which is leading into the Shabbat. We break down and deliberate on concepts from the on the way, and then you know, join us next strong as well. You know, for our midday affirmative, and before that we have, you know, on the radio with DJ Chan Joy, DJ Smoney. But yeah, you know, give thanks to everyone and enjoy the rest of your day. The rest of you strong. Have a strong one. Willfully, this was, you know, affirmative.
Thank you for the bill. restaurant.
Peace, peace, peace.
Peace, give thanks.